Now you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
Positive.
What's up, everybody? Time for another episode of Choir Practice. I'm stoked to have our good friend out here, Michael Letts. First, who are you?
Bernie Howell's retired law enforcement.
We should probably tell them what the show is for people who've been hiding under a rock.
Choir practice is an age-old police tradition where you get together or decompress after generally a hard night of work and just be grateful for the ability to serve and protect and build unity with your coworkers.
And I really like when people buy me drinks, so I would hang out with these guys for choir practice, even though I'm not a cop, so it works out great. Who are you?
We're still trying to figure that one out. My name is Michael Letts, and I'm the founder and president of Invest USA. It's a nonprofit charity that is dedicated to protecting our first responders through active shooter vests, and it's serving now basically as a spokesperson for those who definitely need a voice to be heard, especially in the times we're living.
So, man, I've known you for about a year, and I feel like you're an onion.
And every day, and I don't mean that every layer I peel back, I cry.
I wanted to make sure that I showered before I got on the show this morning.
What I mean by that is every time I'm together with you, we were just together in Texas and Carolina, I feel like I learned something new that you're doing to serve this community. And it's actually pretty incredible, man. So I guess we got to go back to the beginning of this, right? But before we do that, we like to open up every episode with a word of prayer.
Yeah.
You want to lead us?
Yeah, let's do it. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful day, and thank you for our guest and all the work that he does and the work that we're trying to do for our country to honor our law enforcement, our military, our first responders, and to bring this country together. We thank you so much for the words that you put in our brains that come out and the love from our hearts that emulates all from you. In Jesus' name,
amen. I mean, you're a man of faith. You're a man of law enforcement. What's your backstory?
Well, I couldn't find anything I could get good at, so I had to keep jumping from one to the next. Now, my background is my father is a minister. Grew up on the mission field in Mexico. I spent all my formative years there. And so from a first-hand experience, I've learned the value of servitude. And really, quite frankly, let me just kind of put a plug for everybody that's listening. You haven't lived till you've helped others. If it's all about you, you haven't done anything with your life. Find a lane that you can help your fellow man, get in it and stay there, and you'll live a rewarding life.
So I got to point out, you're a pretty solid dude, man.
I've been accused of such.
And I understand you got a little bit of a background in, picking things up and putting them down.
I was a competitive powerlifter, weightlifter for all my entire life. I was captain of the weightlifting team, nationals, etc. And always found out one thing interesting. When the bad guys see a big guy, it really changes the odds. It changes their attitude.
True that.
And of course, my good friend Ronnie Coleman, who was Mr. Olympia for 8 times.
Yeah.
Ronnie can attest to the same thing. When you get somebody walking up to your car, you're 350 pounds of solid, you usually don't get a whole lot of backflip.
Tell you what, man, I learned the hard way. Hug him, but don't let him hug you. You'll die. I mean, I think I cracked a few ribs.
Take your shoulders.
Man. So let's go back to the beginning. First, high level, what is the organization and how did you get from where it all began to where it is now?
Invest USA, we started it in 1993. I served in public office for 30 some odd years on council. And one of the things that I did was, of course, if you're in the public eye running for elective office, you want to make sure you get in front of as many people as possible. So I was president of a Kiwanis club, and one of the speakers didn't show up at the last minute. It's 7 a.m., so I called the sheriff, who's a friend of mine, and said, send me a speaker, let him clean his weapon, and do whatever, play with the blue lights, I don't care what he does. But anyway, in the question and answer session, we had just had a shooting, someone asked the question, where's that thing you're supposed to wear that's supposed to protect you? Shocked by his reply, well, the department doesn't provide them. I'm young, newly married, I can't afford it. So he gave the same presentation to the Rotary Club. So I called the sheriff and said, don't want to get your boy in trouble, but he's telling everybody y'all don't give out vests. He said, we don't. You never provide for them. So I was young and cocky, said, we can fix that real quick. We'll put in $500,000 in the budget and move forward. Well, I was out of town on third reading. And so when I got back, this was back in the old days when you had answering machines, that little red light that flashed. I had all these answering calls on my answering machine saying, we'd like comment from the media as to your opinion, what happened with the third reading, taking 500,000 out. Well, you know, you're supposed to be, as a good politician, you're supposed to think before you speak. I kind of missed that class when I was going through. So I shot from the hip and said, well, fine, if they want to be that way, we'll just raise the money ourselves. I got to tell you, I haven't been able to find an exit strategy in 32 years after that. Biggest mistake I ever made. No, it's been a real privilege and a real honor. When we started it in 1993, 52% of cops across the country, this is an amazing statistic, had no protection at all. No vest, nothing. We were able to get that down to roughly 19%. And then the criminal element, the drug cartel started getting smart. The vest we were providing at that time was the only thing available on the market, as you recall. They were Kevlar vests. It's what we call a concealable vest. It's the one you see them wearing under their shirt. 27 to 32 layers of tightly woven Kevlar pressed together. But the drug cartels decided, you know what? Since it'll only stop a sidearm, a revolver, or a handgun, pistol, we'll start hunting down and going after cops with assault rifles, with long-range rifles. So we had to stop. Create new technology called an active shooter vest. Active shooter vests don't have the Kevlar, they've got titanium steel plates. And that plate, I have seen an M1 Abrams tank, you know how big they are, they're heavy. It's kind of hard to pick one up, change the tire, you know, without a jack. So
Not for you.
no, well, I tried a couple times, that's why I move so slow nowadays. But didn't do a thing to the plates. They're basically indestructible. But here's the problem, folks. Because it's new technology just released in the last decade, 90% of cops on the street don't have vests, active shooter vests. Now, they've got the Kevlar vests, they don't have active shooter. And so we're losing officers. You know, this year, we set a record last year, the number of officers killed in the line of duty, the number that were assaulted. People don't understand. They think, oh, there's just a few hundred, 300, 400 that are killed. It's not just the 300 or 400 that are killed, which, hey, is more than one a day. We have over 70 to 80,000 assaults on officers every year. I mean, imagine taking a job knowing the odds of you getting assaulted before you definitely leave the office, but probably within the year, are pretty high.
100%.
That's what happens out there. So because of that, we have decided that we need to make sure that every officer in America has an active shooter vest. Because when the call comes right now, active shooter, you remember they've changed the policy. In the old days, when a call for an active shooter came, here was what your job was. Get on the scene, keep anybody else from going around, secure the scene, wait for SWAT to get there, because SWAT had the big old heavy Kevlar jackets. Policy has totally changed. This is what happened in Uvalde. Why there was such an outcry. The policy now is active shooter,
Go.
you're it.
Go.
Whoever's on the scene first, you're it. And you're expected to neutralize the threat regardless of whether you have backup or not. It's kind of hard to ask them to do that when they don't have the necessary equipment. And that's why we have to make sure that these officers, they're worthy of respect. Folks, I tell this all across the country. You know, these officers, these men and women, they're human. They're just like you and I. But imagine they're willing to put their lives on the line, and many of them make the ultimate sacrifice for people they know don't even care for them. It takes a special kind of person to do that. It really does. And so because of that, the least we can do is honor them to make sure they have the necessary equipment to come home to their kids. You know, they like to see their kids just as much as anybody else does. And it's a shame that we put them on the street and not give them the ability to come home safely to their families.
Yeah, it's one of the fails of law enforcement. You know, a lot of things that are wrong with law enforcement, a lot of right things, but a lot of wrong things is worrying about spending the amount of money it takes to keep people safe, from reflective gear to, you know, the best handguns. And listen, the reality is we never want to shoot anybody.
Right.
But if we have to, we need to have the tools to be able to do that and do it effectively. And, you know, I was an SRO for 7 years, and one of the greatest fears is obviously somebody coming into your school with an assault rifle. And you're right. Here's my little vest, and, you know, and here I go.
Right. You
know, and the ending of that could be a very tragic story, and it's been played out too many times in this country.
Unfortunately, it's been played out way too many times. You use Uvalde as the illustration. You had the shooter there, and the chief was too scared, too concerned to eliminate the threat. So what did they do? They waited for 90 minutes till they felt like they finally had, you know, the personnel they needed. And how many kids did we lose? Tragic. What should have happened is you gone on the scene, you confront immediately, and you eliminate the threat. Or you get eliminated yourself. That's just part of the job. It's the risk that you take. But I encourage people, having somebody willing to do that, the least you can do is to make sure they know they're appreciated. You know, we have the lowest morale we've ever had in history among our first responders. And when I'm using the word first responders, I want you to understand, folks, it's not just cops now. We lost 9 firefighters in New York who got on the scene before law enforcement did. Okay, remember, they're not concerned about is their scene secure. They're concerned about saving lives, putting out a fire. They were ambushed. 9 of them killed. In South Carolina, we had 3 EMS workers arrive again on the scene before it was secure, eliminated. So we've gotten calls, and we're responding to these calls from firefighters, from EMS stations. These folks say, look, I want to make sure that I can come home to my family, same as anybody else can. Can you help us? The problem with it is this, ladies and gentlemen. We have roughly, or did have, 1.2 million sworn officers across the country. Now, with this whole defund the police, and everything that's been going on that way, unfortunately, we're down to about 700, 725, and it continues to decline. We have agencies that are at 50% of their force. You can't do an effective job. I tell people to remember this one key factor. When you have roughly only 50, 60% of the officers you're supposed to have, your chief still expects to deliver the same amount of protection because that's what the public is requesting. So suddenly your vacation time, sick days, everything gets eliminated. You're asked to just continually stay on the clock, continually provide. And what happens is, as we said a minute ago, we're all human. You burn out what's left of the 60, you end up with 0. And then you have nothing but lawlessness and chaos. And that's where this country has been headed. Violent crime is spiking like it's never been seen before. It's because of the fact that we have gotten our priorities in the wrong order. We are so concerned from an elective standpoint of public office of spreading all those dollars around to make sure we touch every constituency base so we get reelected. When the problem is your oath of office is your first role to provide for the common defense. That means you need to prioritize and make sure that your people are protected from violence and they're safe before you do anything else. If it means spending more money, which it does, then that's where the money needs to go to. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be on programs such as we are here today to make sure that people understand this is not a topic sometimes you like to talk about, but it's reality. If you're walking around in fear right now to go to the mall, to go shopping because you're not sure whether some crazy is out there going to shoot you, we set that stage. But fortunately, together, we can reset the stage and secure freedoms and liberty once again to this great nation.
I mean, I'd vote for him, and he's not even running for anything.
I love
Spectacular.
it. Spectacular.
Yeah, Michael, I get messaged all day, every day, whether it be through our platforms, Law Enforcement Today, Blue Lives Matter, through my LinkedIn, people saying, I want to help, I want to get in the fight, but I don't know how. I can't just show up at my local police department and be like, hey, I got an extra gun here for you. I bought you guys a few boxes of ammo. What I love about your organization is that you take in the donations from good people who just want to keep the community and keep law enforcement safe, and then you negotiate special deals to be able to reduce the pricing to make those dollars go way further than our inefficient bureaucracy at the government level that says, this vest, if you were selling it directly to me, this vest might be, $700. The government's going to say, well, yeah, this is going to be a $14,000 vest because we got all these people we got to take care of and these special earmarked funds and everything. You're going to go in there and you're going to go to the company and say, I'll tell you what, you do it for $400 because we got to keep cops safe. And so that money, I would much rather see, instead of taxpayer funds, right, I would much rather see an organization like yours continue to thrive, because this isn't about you. You're not pulling money out of this at all. I mean, I've seen the financials. I've seen the 990s. Right. We don't work with nonprofit organizations that we don't thoroughly support and believe in. I've seen your books, and I could tell everybody right here and right now, this is the organization that is saving cops' lives. Mm-hmm. And so I would highly encourage you. You got a brand new website, right?
Brand new website, and it's hopping.
Nice.
I hope that's the right word technology nowadays, hopping, but it's hopping.
Hopping, answering machines, rotary phones, I don't know.
My wife says I still don't know what a car's supposed to be yet. We actually have transportation nowadays.
So I would highly encourage people to go check out the organization and make a donation, because without question, all of those funds are going to the right cause to keep cops safe. Michael, it was, we were talking earlier about how I was blessed with the opportunity to read names of fallen officers this year at the Candlelight Vigil. I personally interviewed over 1,000 surviving family members of officers killed in the line of duty. It doesn't get easier.
No, it doesn't.
Ever. It doesn't get easier to sit down with that cop who took a blast to the chest and is there to tell you about it. It never gets easier, but it gets a little bit safer because of organizations like yours.
And I love what Kyle said. The reason why I want to reiterate what he's saying is, look, it's not just about, somebody asked me, well, just make the government pay for it all. Let me give you a quick story. The government created a match program that we helped push together in Congress back in the mid-90s. It's called the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Act.
Yeah.
Well, they will supposedly match what you raise to be able to buy vests. Here's how the government works. They decided, okay, we're going to put these millions in here for a match, but since we're going to just set it there, we're going to create requirements. First of all, you have to buy your vest and then submit a receipt, and then we will meet once a year to decide how much of that we're going to reimburse. So like I told them, just keep your money, because if I had the money to buy it to begin with, what do I need you for?
Absolutely.
That just shows you that it really is the private sector that makes these things work. And one of the things I want to reiterate that Kyle had said, something unique about this program, is it allows you, the public, to buy in to the people that are willing to support, defend you, and put their lives on the line for you. I tell people all the time on a national level, I don't care if you give a quarter, 50 cents, a dollar. I want every cop in America to know that there are millions of patriots who are willing to stand shoulder to shoulder, put their money where their mouth is, and invest and bring these officers home safely to their families. And I will promise you this, in return, their morale will boost, and they'll do a much better job of protecting you, and you'll have a much safer community. If you don't care about a safer community for yourself, at least care about it for the kids. Care about it for your children, for your grandchildren, because they're our future.
How did it feel when we were together with our better halves and some friends together in Mar-a-Lago a few weeks ago, and we stood there by the pool and President Trump was talking about the need to refund the police, the need to bring back law and order, the need to bring back safety?
President Trump is right on key. I say that without apology. You know, you could have the greatest economy, and there's plenty of things that we're going to be doing to straighten the economy, among other things. But if you're not safe, if you're not living, if you're not breathing, what good does it do you? And the people that make sure that you're safe are our first responders, our law enforcement officers. And how can you ask them to put their lives on the line, to risk their future, their children's future, when we treat them with such disrespect? We don't even give them the equipment. That's like, we don't live in the Andy Taylor days anymore where Barney Fife gets his one bullet in the thing. We don't live that way anymore, folks. Society is dangerous. The criminal element is dangerous. And to put these officers on the line without the necessary equipment to come home to their families is deplorable. There's no other way to say it. So you don't have to be a deplorable MAGA supporter. You can just be a deplorable person by not putting, the resources that need to be for our cops on the street. So make sure that you help these law enforcement officers feel like they're appreciated. I tell you, Kyle asked a question. I get asked all the time, what can we really do to help? Here's what you can do. First and foremost, even before you talk about helping invest, if you see an officer on the street, whether he's a cop, EMS worker, or firefighter, realize that he made a commitment to put his life on the line, to risk his life to save you. Can you not just smile and say thank you? What did it cost you? Just tell him, thanks, I appreciate your willingness to serve. All you have to do. It'll make a huge difference in the morale of these officers, and it'll help rebuild what we've been tearing down for the last decade and a half. Second thing I tell you to do is go to our website. That's www.investestusa.org. It's a charity.org. And make a contribution. I don't care the amount. Make a contribution so that we can tell these cops there are millions of people who back you, because let me tell you what is real. PTSD, having to deal with the worst of the worst day in and day out, you don't forget those things. You'll never erase them from your mind. How do we deal with it? We deal with it if we know we're making a difference and you care. But if we don't think that you even care, then why are we doing it? So make sure that you tell these officers thank you. Make sure that you send them some kind of support, regardless of the amount, so we can tell them there's millions backing them. And then thirdly, one of the things I get challenged on all the time, but I say it anyway, Folks, if you think we're living in a time in society now that law enforcement can protect you, you're wrong. We have gotten to the point that we have decimated that blue line so bad. What law enforcement does now is we'll show up after the case, okay? We'll help figure out who did it. We'll help provide justice and accountability for their actions. But if you're going to protect yourself, your kids, your family, and your community, you're going to be responsible to do it yourself. That means you better know how to use a firearm. You better own one first. You better know how to use it. It won't do you any good if you pull it out of the box and don't know which end shoots, okay? Make sure you know how to use it. And then thirdly, encourage others to make sure that together you present a unified front. We're armed. We support our law enforcement officers. We're here to back them. And you'll see a decline in violent crime like you've never seen before. And we'll restore the joy of living in America that we used to have decades ago.
And I'm going to taxi onto that because we do. As a country, we owe it to our police officers because we took a very small minority of people in this country took away a lot from our law enforcement officers over the last few years. And now we're trying to restoratively build that back. Certain things like this mean a lot. When I was an officer, I was over 33 years, 3,000 plus officers died.
Correct.
That's 3,000 flags. That is families, that is husbands, that is wives, that is, go up the tree. That is a huge, huge loss. We can't take, and we're not talking about officers who committed suicide when you talk about PTSD.
Right.
We owe it to our officers because they get up every morning and they do the impossible. They take on their problems and then they go out there and take on yours, irregardless of what theirs are at home. Baby sick in the hospital, oh, you got to work. Hey, we're shorthanded. Right. Working doubles has become the commonplace for law enforcement officers, but yet the newspapers will still do stuff like, oh, this officer made $250,000 this year. Yeah, but he also missed his child's first birthday, didn't come, missed a lot of events and things like that. It's blood money. And when you're asking someone to work 16 hours a day, multiple times a week, what about the fatigue factor? What about their health? What about, because now I can't go to the gym if I'm working 4 doubles. Right. I got enough time to maybe eat and get enough sleep to get myself back to work. We owe our officers a bigger debt of gratitude now than ever before.
Well, and let's look at the numbers too. For everyone complaining, oh, that cop made $200,000. Well, gee, morons, maybe if you hadn't defunded the police, you would have enough officers so that you didn't have to have these guys picking up 10 extra shifts.
But I think the problem with that is I don't think the majority of our people did that. I think a small group of people influenced politics and the media to not support police officers.
Yes.
When I teach the people, I tell my officers 90% of your public loves you. You know that. And I said, you need to embrace that. When that little kid looks at you all wide-eyed and is like, wow, you know what? Take them to your cruiser. Because it feels just as good to you as it does to them. Because anything we can do to restore our faith in our communities, the people that love us are quiet about it. And they're not as vocal like yourself. And thank God for you and people like you. But that doesn't mean they don't support you.
No, you're exactly right. One of the things that he was just mentioned that I want to capitalize on is, folks, we're talking about today's problem. We don't have enough cops. They're gone. We're losing them. We don't give them proper equipment. But think of the message we're sending to young people. Now, remember, I'm all across the country handing out vests all over. You know what every chief, every sheriff tells me their biggest concern is? Nobody wants to wear a badge anymore. They used to have a class of 100. They'd have 3,000 applicants. Now they have a class of 100 and they get 25 applicants, 20 of them who have no business being an applicant. There's nobody to put the badge on. So we're headed to self-destruction unless we turn this thing around. And you are setting an example for these small children and for these young people. Because right now they've seen what you have to say. And logically they say, fine, if that's the way it is, I'm not going to be around it. I'm not wearing a badge. I'm not involved in that period. Get me out of here. We're going to run out of people who are willing to wear the badge. And we're going to be in the same boat with or without the protection. So make sure that you do this because it's a demonstration to your children. They mean enough to me. I'm willing to give to make sure that they're protected, they can protect you, and to send you a subtle message. This is an honorable profession. I can't think of anything more honorable. Somebody tells you, oh, there's some bad cops. At 1.2 million, when we had that many, and having over a 95 to 97% positive rate. In other words, you have 2 to 3% that are bad. You have worse than that with doctors. How many doctors are quacks? I mean, how many lawyers are quacks? I could go down the list. Preachers, for that matter. I mean, we could go down the whole 9 yards, okay? So don't give me that line that law enforcement officers are bad people. They're the exact opposite. They're some of the best people that walk the face of the earth. They're willing to sacrifice, and the least we can do is to acknowledge that and send a message to our young people. It's an honorable profession to serve your fellow man. Yeah, we do have a few cops that are perhaps power hungry. They'll weed themselves out. Don't worry about it. Cops, I can tell you among ourselves, we take care of the ones that shouldn't be there. They get weeded out. But you need to send a message to your children. This is an honorable profession. Our society depends upon it. And I encourage you to make a life of servanthood, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's firefighter, whatever you do. You know, I love what Kyle said, making $250,000. You make a bunch of money, then why don't you put it back into the community? Why don't you put it back into helping people? You know what you'll find out? You can't take it with you, folks, okay? Invest it in the life of people, whether it's through public service, whether it's through being an officer, whether it's investing back in people who need your help. That's the greatest accomplishment you can make while you're living on this earth. So start now by investing in the people that need you. As he pointed out, we're in a desperate situation. Never been like this in our history. Law enforcement and our first responders, above anything else, need our support. That line is snapping. You can see the cracks going through. When it collapses, our society will collapse, our country will collapse. Please don't let that happen for the sake of you and your children and our future.
Michael, stupidity is, I know I mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, but it is a rising problem in society. There are genuinely a strong number of stupid people out there, although they're still in the minority, thank God. I'll give you an example. Let's say 2010. Numbers indicate that there might be a problem with heart attacks. People massively dying, numbers rapidly rising, more and more people dying of heart attacks. Who in their right mind thinks we should go, you know what, man? Those cardiothoracic surgeons and cardiologists, those guys suck. We gotta get rid of them. We gotta take away their funds, take away their training, reduce the number of them because clearly they suck. Now this analogy is operating on the assumption that the cardiologists and cardiothoracic surgeons, or in this case, cops, are really the problem. Right. They're not, but my point on this analogy is that you don't solve a problem by removing resources and training and support. If you really believe there's a problem, you fix the problem, not by removing all of that. One of the things that I love about the organization is the public-private partnerships. Right. And so you're working with a canine activity tracker right now to help bring together solutions for law enforcement. And that organization is taking a percentage of the business that comes in and reinvesting it into this nonprofit. You were just out in Texas at the National Law Enforcement Officer Hall of Fame induction just to show support for the people out there in that organization. You were out with the Texas Municipal Police Association presenting vests. You're on the border. You're traveling all over the country, not because you're making money on it, just the opposite. You're giving it all away to everybody. And so to see that, a lot of organizations will say, we don't play well with other groups. We don't play well with other businesses. We just want everyone to give us money and that's it. You guys are a very active part of this community. You are out there shaking hands. You are out there doing everything in your power to support the community, not just by supporting cops, but showing your love and dedication to the small towns, to the big cities. We've got a vest presentation coming up with our friends over, we won't announce it yet, but in New York somewhere. Right. They've been on the show. And so it's a real honor to have you guys fly in, and I'm looking forward to a bunch more footage coming out with you.
Well, thank you, Kyle. One of the things I'm going to pick up real quickly, what he said, if you go to our website, we have all kind of programs. We have pennies for police. What is that? We ask our young people, you mentioned the school resource officer.
Yes.
We ask our kids to go home and get their parents to give them the change. I don't care if it's 5 pennies, 5 quarters, whatever it is. Put all their change together. Bring it to school. Invest will take care of if there's a difference that's necessary, okay? Make sure that those kids feel like they just bought that vest. Then we want a school assembly. We want all those kids to get up there and surround that officer with love while they hand that vest. That's how you make your school resource program work. Because now you've got connection. Those kids feel like they have ownership. That's my officer. Cool, right? Okay, now they totally change their perspective. They've now opened up. He now has friends. He can figure out where the problems are at, where the crime is coming, family problems. Makes the program extremely effective. Just one issue. We've got one other one I want to touch on real quick. It's called Bless the Vest. I ask every house of worship. I don't care your denomination. I don't care what the house of worship is called. Every house of worship, we ask them to adopt a cop, okay? Go to the department that you're in, the area you're in, and tell them you want one officer that you want to take care of. You want to provide, raise the money within your congregation to get them an active shooter vest. You want to present it at a service. Trust me, it means that much to them. They'll come to the service for that. Now, I'm not asking them to join your church. I'm just saying they'll come to that service, hand them that vest, tell them this church, whether you agree with our doctrine or not, it's irrelevant. This church is praying for you 24/7, okay? And because of the fact, if you ever need anything, your family ever needs anything, you have a resource right here. We're demonstrating by putting a vest on your back. God bless you. We're praying for you to be safe. You want to churn around the violent crime and the perception that occurs in this country, that we are scared, that we are run by thugs, that we cannot longer do anything. You get the general population to get behind programs like this, you'll see a difference. It's inevitable. We're going to change this country around. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you guys. Man.
Shameless
I really
plug
appreciate
time
it.
one more time.
Oh, Invest USA. That's INVEST USA.org. Don't forget it's a charity.org. All these programs, all of our programs are there. Your ability to donate, your ability to get engaged now and save the future of your children and your grandchildren. Don't miss out. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you so much.
I got nothing. I can't top that.
And to my law enforcement family, we have to understand that people like this gentleman, people like Henry, support our shields. The Law Enforcement Hall of Fame. All these people are civilians or former officers. They care about you. Your lives mean so much to them. Don't turn off our public, because sometimes we do as officers. It's been a tough stretch for officers and they don't feel loved. You are loved, you are cared for. There are people working behind the scenes selflessly on our behalf in the law enforcement world to increase that, to make you understand how important you are so that you can become better ambassadors, because it is up to us, those who've walked in that light. We better be the best recruiters for the next generation of law enforcement. You can't tell them, go be a firefighter. You got to tell them this was a great job. I love this job. If I could go back and do it again, I would really, truly do it again. It was one of the greatest decisions of my life, and I hope that everybody that wears that badge and whatever you do in public service feels that way. It is a blessing. It is a calling to do what you do. You are so important and you are vital to America, and God bless you all. And thank you for you.
God bless you. Appreciate this show. Even the quirkiness with the guys, man, is a camaraderie, you know. It's a family. Right. And I invite the rest of the public to join the family. You can be a part by getting involved with Invest today. Thank you so much.
God bless you all. God bless America.
Bye, Mom.
Did you get new ink?
Yes.
Looks good.
Right there.